Okay guys, so today I have a new video for you. This is going to be more of a tech choices to consider for White Forest rather than actual deck profile. I want to focus on Nightmare Apprentice and some of the utility this adds to the deck and why you might want to consider playing it. There are really two main utilities, which is searching Diabellze and also searching Diabellze, although that's more of a post-side type strategy. And it also does make it easier to make a Light and Dark Chaos Angel very early on into your turn to force interactions. If you're new to my channel, I usually cover Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck theory, deck building, ratios, stuff like that. I mostly cover White Forest, but also other stuff too. So if you're interested in any of that, feel free to subscribe or join the Discord. And if you're not, then don't. Okay, so quick overview of this card. Then I'll show you a sample line and then some basic gameplay where this card is used. So first of all, this is a level 6 Dark, and you can special summon it from your hand by discarding one card. Now this is an inherent summon, so this does not trigger any of your White Forest spells or traps. That's unfortunate, but there are also advantages to having an inherent summon, like you can't, for example, Wave Hiking Caesar it, kind of like with the Black Witch. So if this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by battle, the standard illusion effect. If it's normal or special summon, so this is a trigger effect, so this will trigger when you special summon it off of its own summoning condition. You can add one illusion monster from your deck to your hand, except itself, and you can only use that once per turn. So in your typical main deck, you probably don't want to main Diabellze, because this is a much better side deck strategy and a very strong side deck strategy against certain decks. So you're typically going to be searching for the Diabellze, because this is an illusion. There are very few illusion monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! And there are not really any that are worth playing, I think, unless that Void Burial card becomes good at one point. So let's see, if I pull up, where's illusion here? And search for that, you can see that there are very few cards right here. Some of the highest value stuff to search would probably be like Cornfield Kotal or Mirror Sword Knight if you were playing a Chimera build, but that's another video. This card could be a cool hand trap in a certain meta, but right now it's not really useful. Technically, Queen of the Azamina is an illusion monster, but this card I think is probably not worth playing. Maybe, like, if you guys have any ideas in the comments below why you would play this, and maybe Nightmare Apprentice makes this better because you will search it a lot more often than you draw it, but I don't really know if this card is worth playing, to be honest. And the levels are also kind of awkward as it being an 8. The only thing that I could really think of is, because this is a Dark 8 and Diabellze is a light 2, you could make a Light and Dark Chaos Angel off of those two cards, which is like kind of an unusual combination, but I don't really know if this is worth it. Anyhow, so typically you're going to search Diabellze, and the only unfortunate thing about that line is that these two cards by themselves on the field don't actually get you anything in this deck besides like a Closed Heaven, because they're both illusions. So if you look at the fusion monsters, because remember this can fuse with whatever from your field or hand, the Sol requires an illusion and a fiend, and then the Murcielago is illusion and light spellcaster, and Ilya Sylvia is illusion and light spellcaster. So because they're both illusions, you can't fuse with them, unfortunately. I do think that it is worth considering that going into a Closed Heaven immediately without using your normal summon is actually not bad. It also, if you're playing Goat, I guess is another way to get Goat in the grave as early as possible. Like if you draw Goat but not LZ, against decks like Ryzeal, which will have a primary boss monster like Detonator on field, that is good. But I think probably where this shines the most is because you can search Diabellze. So this card says, if a Sinful Spoils card is in either player's graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. So we can set that up with like almost any hand in this entire deck. We can guarantee that there will be a Sinful Spoils card in our graveyard, which means that we can summon this card for free. Then your opponent must set spell or trap cards before activating them. If a spell or trap becomes set on the field while this card is in the monster zone, then you can target a card you control and a card your opponent controls, destroy them. And that's once per turn. So you can search this and summon it on your own turn, and that's like a pretty decent monster. The other card that you can play if you're going to go for Diabellze in this strategy to make it more consistent is Sinful Spoils Subdual. So this card, I think, it's very, very unfortunate that you can only use one of its effects per turn, and only once that turn. Otherwise, this card would be far stronger. Also, this is Diabellze herself here. So this says, take a level 5 or higher illusion monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. But if you special summon it with this effect, you cannot activate its effects during the main phase this turn. So for example, if you have this card, which is searchable because this is a Sinful Spoils card, you can special summon the Diabellze on your opponent's turn, and the floodgate effect will apply. You just can't use this effect to pop during the main phase. If you already have access to Diabellze for some reason, I guess you could search or special the Apprentice, and you would still be able to use Apprentice's effect as long as you'd specialed it, but not in the main phase. The other effect that's very interesting here is you can banish it from your grave, target a face down card you control. This will usually be a spell or trap. Return it to the hand, then you can set a spell or trap from your hand. So because this sets, for example, the same thing that it bounced, like let's say that you have a face down Tails that you have reset, and this is going to be your fodder for, you know, Diabellze to send or whatever, you can banish this from grave, bounce the Tails, reset the Tails, and now that the Tails has been reset, you'll trigger the Diabellze. But the problem is that you can only do that if you didn't summon the Diabellze off of the Subdual, because Subdual says you can't use the effect in the main phase. So it's like you'd have to have searched the Diabellze off of a Nightmare Apprentice, which means you have to draw either Diabellze or Apprentice, which is like, you know, probably like 40-something% chance to happen. It's like a decent percent chance, but it's, you know, low. And then you'd have to search the Sinful Spoils card off something else, which is easy. The other thing that this card allows you to do is it allows you to have a searchable trigger for Cheng Ying. I don't think that warrants playing Cheng Ying per se, but I guess if you're already on GOAT and you are going to be playing this, then you would really want to consider playing Cheng Ying. So yeah, okay. Now let me go straight into some of the lines. First of all, let me show you the basic idea here. So let's say that you start with Apprentice in your hand. You can Apprentice, pitch whatever, and you can search Diabellze. Okay, so because this is an illusion monster, your Tails is always going to be live. I feel like Tails is potentially worth considering at 2 or 3 without the toy cards. So you always have good stuff to send, and you always have good stuff to search. You don't run out of things to search, especially in the grind. And then you have a lot of cards like Black Witch, Wanted, and a Nightmare Apprentice that will give you a special summon on the field that makes Tails live. So this card is almost never dead. So anyhow, we have Diabellze in hand now, and we have a Sinful Spoils card, which we need in the grave to be able to special summon this for free. So let's say we Tails here, we LZ, and we just go for like some basic combo. So here we search the Witch, we pitch something, we go for Deception, we Tribute, we get Hallowed, probably go for Murcielago here, I think. Yeah, that usually gets Unleashing unless you need another body. So I guess we're searching Azamina LZ here. Summon the Sylvie, search another Tails. Arciela searches a Veiler. Reset the Tails, summon that, bring out Diabellze, and here you can search the Subdual, for example. We already have access to the Diabellze in hand, but now we summon the Diabellze and we could go into Moon or do whatever. This is really just to show that you do have like a setup for the Witch, and you could, for example, like let's say your opponent they normal summon a monster, okay? Because you have the Subdual in grave, if you haven't used the Subdual to bring out the Diabellze, you can banish Subdual, okay, bounce the Tails, reset the Tails on a new chain, trigger the Diabellze, and then, you know, pop whatever. So that's okay. Okay, now let me show you some gameplay. I'm going to try to go over this more quickly than I usually do. Okay, first I will show you against Ryzeal. I have not been testing with Ryzeal much recently, so I'm not super up to date on the best lines with this deck. But I don't think that this is the correct line, because what he does loses pretty hard to nib. So he goes summon 1, summon 2, summon 3 is the duo drive. He searches for the field spell and the plugin, which means that he's probably not on Fiendsmith, by the way. Although I guess he could be, but usually the Fiendsmith versions don't play plugin. So he's on summon number 3. I have nib in hand. Now he summons the sword and he summons the node. So this is summon number 5. Even if he activates the field spell now, he does not have a material attached to an XYZ monster. But because he has plugin, he could just activate cross. I guess I could nib here, but he could have just activated the field spell before, and so then if I try to nib at any point, he would just use plugin, give himself a material, and then he'd be able to negate the nib. So he doesn't actually do that. Now he goes for detonator. There's still no reason to nib because he hasn't activated the field spell. Now he activates the field spell, but because it is a field spell, as with continuous spells, the activation has to successfully complete before the card can be used. So on activation, I can just chain nib, and now it doesn't matter that he has, you know, plugin in hand. It doesn't matter that he has all the materials attached here. The cross can't negate anything because it hasn't successfully activated on the field. So I chain nib and then I just summon a token there. So here he plugs in, obviously, to bring back the the detonator, but this is like a million times worse because not only does he have less pops, it's not even an aggregator here, by the way, but it means that he doesn't have the plugin for my turn. So like anything that I do to him, he doesn't have like any follow-up. So yeah, major misplay on his end by not making the cross live earlier on because he already had the plugin to do so, unless I misunderstood something. So okay, I start here, I draw thrust. I go battle phase because if he uses detonator to protect itself, he's going to lose the material. And then he's not going to have any pops, which, you know, I don't want to go normal summon Sylvie. He goes detonator, pops the Sylvie, and now I'm looking stupid because I don't have anything else to do. So then I basically would be like thrusting for talents and praying to draw into something that would be playable. So yeah, I use his material. I go Sylvie, I search for Unleashing because I already have the Tails. And I activate Tails, I go for Elzette. Elzette pitch Unleashing. We search for the Azumina Elzette. Reset the Unleashing, bring that one out. Arciela. Search for the Wanted off the Azumina Elzette. And here he bells the Wanted. Which means that we don't get our normal rotation, but that's fine. So here we go, Diabellze. We add back, I think it was Unleashing or Thrust. Now we go for talents. Unfortunately, the Tract, this is the main downside of Tract. Sanct compared to Tract. If this was a Tract I just drawn into, I could still do the full Fiendsmith line by searching the Lurie, but Sanct requires that you control no face-up monsters or only light fiend monsters. Now this almost never ever comes up because like who plays around drawing into Sanct off of talents? Because usually you draw this or you draw Engraver and you just begin your turn like that. And anyhow, it's supposed to soak hand traps. So I just use it as fodder to pitch. I summon Nightmare Apprentice. Now I search for Diabellze. I summon a Light and Dark Chaos Angel. I get rid of the field spell because that's probably like one of the only interactions he'll have on his turn before he remakes Detonator. Summon Diabellze. He goes Nib, which doesn't affect these monsters, but there was still no reason not to summon Diabellze because I didn't like it. Like, so what? So one of the cool things about Chaos Angel is that it counts as one of the Fiend synchros because this is a Fiend synchro, so it's one of the things that you can bounce with Unleashing. So yeah, he goes Lacrime here. He goes for the Requiem, brings out the Engraver, sequence, and I'm not waiting to see what happens. I mean, I could have like waited to get an additional body where he would bring out the he would try to equip off of sequence. And I would try to bounce with Unleashing, and if he chained Desiree, I could chain this and send the Unleashing and get another body, but it's just like, I don't think it matters at this point because I'm decently far ahead, so then he scoops. Okay, next game is against Floo. The only reason I'm showing this game is because I despise Floo players, and I want to show that no Floo player everborn has ever had a brain. So here, I go for a basic line. I don't have a very good hand. I have a bunch of, I have some duplicates. I have some cards that he's not playing into, so I can't use them. But I'm also not being interacted with, so I can't really complain too much. I search the Unleashing here. Elzette, go for Rusia, reset Unleashing, add back Howl to hand, go for Diabellze, add back, I think that was a Wanted maybe, bring out Ilia Sylvia, special Rusia, go for a draw here. I get Engraver, but as we know we can't use the Sanct there, so we just use it for a draw. Go into Moon, do our entire Fiendsmith play here, so it's fine, we're not cut off from it, we just need 2 bodies. And then we go for the Wave Hiking Caesar. And then I go for Gallant Granite here. It's actually not the most efficient end board because the Gallant Granite is stuck on board. He has nothing to search next turn. I only play 1 nib. I guess you could, if you played more nibs, but like, you don't need to play multiple nibs just in case you can resolve Granite twice. So now he reveals he's on Floo, which means that the Wave Hiking is dead. It means that he doesn't have to play into the nib. And really, I only have like one really good in-engine accessible card, which is Unleashing. I can book stuff with Diabellze, but I have to be very early, or I could bring out Arciela and search for a Veiler. But I also do have Droplet, so I do have a decent amount of interactions here. He goes to use the this effect to reveal 2, put them on the bottom of your deck, draw the same number of cards. So I'm thinking that maybe his hand isn't very good, and so you can only use that effect once per turn, even though you can use the tributing effect as often as you want. So I go Unleashing Chainlink 2, target the Unexplored Winds to fizzle the putback effect, and he goes for the absolutely insane big brain counterplay to Unleashing, targeting his Unexplored Winds by going Chainlink 3 Called By and targeting, what does he target? My Murcielago. Like, what is this guy doing, dude? Like, what? Anyhow, he reactivates it, but can't use the effect. He probably didn't know that either. So now he normal summons Rabina, and I negate that because I'm thinking like I still have a droplet, so I think it'd be very hard for him to play through this. If this gets negated, it doesn't matter if he has, any way to dodge the targeted negates because this is not a targeted negate. So I'm not really too worried there about using that. And then he sets 2 and passes. Now he activates, what is this card? Lose 1 turn, and he realizes that he's a Floo player, so he quits. Okay, so then I have, I think, 2 super quick games. One of them is, they're against Swordsoul. So here I draw Apprentice. I pitch a droplet. I search for Diabellze because I already have a way to play. Oh, here's a very foolish mistake that I make. I've showed a million times before. You draw Azamina Elzette and Rusia quite often together, and you don't need to normal summon because obviously Azamina Elzette specials itself, and then Rusia has a White Forest on board, so it can also special itself. But I normal summon the Rusia just as a mistake, and so I've used my normal summon already, and that will cost me a body later on. So I have access to Diabellze, I have access to Wanted, which I want in my grave, so I can special the Diabellze later on. You do have to remember not to banish your only Sinful Spoils card by banishing the Wanted to put back Deception and draw, because then you won't be able to summon Diabellze. So if you are going to do that, you have to summon the Diabellze before you do that. Okay, so Hallowed brings up Murcielago, gives us Unleashing. Elzette, Azamina regular Elzette, sorry, summons itself. We have Diabellze, which gives us back the Wanted. We add back Hallowed, which can give us the Ilia Sylvia. And after we've summoned this, we now banish the Wanted from our grave, and we get a draw here. So we have Unleashing, we have an Omni Negate, we have the Diabellze Floodgate, and potentially a pop, and then we have the Diabellze here. So the opponent starts by specialing in Incredible Ecclesia, specials Moyi from deck, and reveals Adara to summon a token. So I Unleashing that. Does that make sense? I don't want to play into Talents or Thrust, and I know that this is a breaker build, so I'm starting with my trap card. I guess I don't want him to make Grandmaster, and then, I have to use too many resources to interact with it, although Grandmaster, I guess technically, you can't use both of his effects in the same turn anyhow, like you can't search / banish and also have the negate, so I guess the Grandmaster wasn't a huge threat. He could have done something awkward like go Draco Berserker and then go Battle Phase, but anyhow, I just use the Unleashing there. So he summons another Ecclesia. He sets the War Zone, and I don't. So this is actually a crazy card because it potentially gives you access to 3 resources. So I pop my Murcielago, because how this works is you target a card you control and a card your opponent controls, and you destroy them. Because it says destroy them, they don't have to both be destroyed. So like if you targeted a Silvera and then you bounced it to special summon something from grave, you would still destroy your opponent's target. So there are like kind of cool plays you can do with that. Anyhow, I send the Murcielago because that will trigger its effect to search a Sinful Spoils card, and then he scoops there. The last game that I will show is I think using Subdual. So here I summon a Stellar. I start with a Stellar, sending the Unleashing to start to do my ladder that way. I can't remember what I searched off the Arciela. I wonder if this is a mistake here. I feel like maybe I should have searched the Veiler. I don't remember what I was thinking here. But anyhow, I do manage to recover a little bit and use, I say recover, kind of like, I think I made a mistake here, and so I had to summon Silvera so that I could have sent Azamina Elzette to the grave as fusion material to get a search there. So the useful thing about searching Unleashing earlier, for example, off of like a Sylvie or off of an Arciela, is that the Murcielago can now search something different. So in this case, the Sinful Spoils Subdual. So this is the one that can bring out the Diabellze on their turn. So we add back the Hallowed, I think, by shuffling back the Azamina Elzette, and then we go for the basic Requiem play with Neck Equip and going into the Wave by King Caesar. Here's another example of a place where, you can technically make a Light and Dark Chaos Angel on your own turn just for protection, because it's very strong this meta. It's kind of hard for some decks to out. You can also just make the Chenging there. The problem with Subdual, as I said before, is you can only use one of its effects per turn. So if you special in your opponent's turn, you can't banish it to do the bounce your set card and reset it thing. So I guess actually, like, I could imagine a play where you're not actually getting access to Diabellze, but you just want setup for Cheng Ying. It could be good if you're not stopped when you've already got access to your Unleashing, but that seems a little bit win more, so I don't really like that too much. It's more just like a nice thing to know, I guess. So here he Raigekis. We chain the Diabellze obviously to bring out Arciela to protect our monsters, but we do lose the Wave Hiking, which is a super high value card. Of course, a bunch of our stuff floats here. You could argue, you know, why didn't you just subdual like in draw phase and bring out Diabellze so that you'd be able to not lose to stuff like Raigeki? But I was actually thinking that I might lose to something like a Dark Ruler, because, you know, if he sets Dark Ruler, I don't know what it is, and I'm not necessarily going to pop the first thing he does knowing that he's on Thrust and Talents. So I was thinking of waiting for the first power spell maybe, or the first interaction, and then using a Subdual to bring out the Diabellze. So now I bring out the Diabellze here, and so I have Nib and Valor in my hand, and I still have Unleashing here. So I have like excellent follow up, really. So it's really going to be hard for him to OTK here. So we go Valor, and then there's the Scoop. So okay. Any final thoughts here? Not really. I think that you could consider playing the card. I think it adds another piece of gas to your hand, instead of cards all being of the same engine, and that's a very important thing for being able to play through interactions. I don't like that it is not searchable, and I don't like that in your main deck you basically have to search for Azamina LZ, because I personally would not be adding a break into my deck game 1, but this does seem like a very strong card to have for game 2 or 3 when you know you're going first. So that's pretty much it. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching.